No.
There we are. Good morning, everybody. This is a meeting of the Licensing Committee Regulatory of North Norfolk District Council, being held today on Wednesday, the 1st of March 2023. To receive any apologies for absences, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Tim Adams, Councillor Don Birch, Councillor Harry Blathwaite, Councillor Christopher Cushing, Councillor Pauline Grove-Jones, Councillor John Rest, Councillor Eric Vardy and Councillor Andreas Ussini. Fine, thank you. And any substitutes? We don't have any substitutes listed for this committee. Okay. Section 3, minutes. Morning, Tim. To approve as correct record of the minutes of the former Licensing and Appeals Committee meeting held on the 17th of May 2022, the former subcommittee meeting held on the 26th of May of last year, as well as the minutes of the Licensing Subcommittee Regulatory held on the 27th of June last year, 18th of July, 27th of September and 23rd of November, all of last year. So anybody have any questions or changes? If I could just ask for a proposer and a seconder, and then they can be taken on block if members are satisfied.
Fine. Pete Fisher and Emma Spagnola. Could we have a vote, please, to accept them all? Thank you. Items of urgent business.
There are no items of urgent business.
Really well. Declarations of interest. Anybody? Any declarations of interest? None noted. Okay. Now we'll deal with the public prosecution licensing update, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. For those that you don't know me, I'm Emily Capps. I'm the Assistant Director for Environmental and Leisure Services. And with me is my colleague, Nikki Davison, who's a licensing officer within the public protection team. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the report that was enclosed with the minutes. So I won't go through it line by line, but we'll give a brief summary of that report. As you'll have noticed, there have been some changes to the team structure in the last year in the licensing department. The licensing officer, Lara Clare, moved to Great Yarmouth for promotion, and Nikki was appointed into her role. We've also had a change in management of the public protection team, and rather than having a manager, we now have 2 team leaders for food safety, health and safety, licensing and sampling. So there's been a restructure there within the service. Hopefully that hasn't impacted on service delivery. The first licensing regime within the report is animal welfare, and this now presents a significant proportion of the work that the team undertake. There was a change to the animal licensing regime approximately 4 years ago, with now all animal activities combined on one licence. And you'll see within the report a breakdown of those licenses in terms of animal boarding, riding establishments, pet shop licenses, the exhibition licence. So if you, I don't know, have snakes at Cromer Carnival, the person who brings those snakes requires a licence to do that. They were formerly done by the County Council until the change. Dog breeding, dangerous wild animals, and the exception to that is zoos that haven't been brought into that regime. So there are the stats for the animal licensing section. We have had a successful prosecution in terms of animal licensing within the team in the last year for offences relating to the keeping of a dangerous wild animal without a licence, a serval cat, and pet shop licensing offences, the selling of those cats without the appropriate licensing. We haven't had a sentencing yet in court. We're waiting for that. It was in court last week, but was adjourned till June for sentencing. So whilst we've had the prosecution, we're yet to have the sentencing for that. We then move on to taxi licensing, and you'll see that in 2022 we've had a significant increase in new applications for private hire vehicles. That might spark your attention, and that increase in applications has come from one company on the whole, who are now operating within the district, mainly doing schools contracts for the county council. But you can see that there's an increase there from 2021 of 25 licenses to 148 in 2022. So, but as I say, they're mainly one company that we've seen that increase with. Obviously, that's produced pressure for the team and resourcing demand. Further on within taxi licensing, we talk about the review of the Hackney carriage fee. So this is the charge that not we charge for the license, but you as a punter hiring the Hackney carriage would have to pay. And the trade came to us last year and asked us to review it. That sort of fizzled out, if you like, in terms of their interest in terms of increasing the fee, but we've been approached again. So in the coming year, we will now look at that once again. I think with the cost of living crisis and wage and fuel increases, there might be more of an appetite for that. And within the report contains the table in terms of where our Hackney carriage charges sit with other local authorities, and you'll see that ours for a 2-mile fare sits at £5.80, and some of our neighbouring authorities are at £8.50 or £8 or £7. So ours are lower than other neighbouring authorities in terms of that. But that's not the money coming to the authority, that's the money that goes to the taxi company. We are in the process of introducing knowledge tests for taxi drivers, and that's something that Nikki and the team are currently working on to deliver, and will be an improvement to the service. In terms of caravan licensing, we've had a temporary post in this area. It's something that we perhaps haven't looked at for several years. So we've had an additional resource on a temporary post, which has meant that we've really been able to focus in on those sites. And we took the decision that we would look at the caravan sites on the cliff edges first because of the safety implications there. And we've visited about 50 sites to date. We have picked up some significant issues on some of those sites and have been working with site owners to try and remedy them in terms of electrical safety, spacing and distancing, gas safety. So it's been a really valuable piece of work in terms of the safety of those people that are using those caravan sites. So and it, you know, as I say, it's an area that we perhaps haven't looked at for a while. So it's been time well spent. The next part of the report talks about sex establishment licensing, and you may remember, those committee members might remember that last year we held an investigation into a unlicensed sexual entertainment venue within the district. That investigation was completed and resolved, and we have no further investigation at the moment currently ongoing. Street trading. The department has been working on a draft street trading policy. It was presented to business planning, I think probably 2 months ago now. This introduces a different way of charging for street trading in the district. At the moment, there's one set fee, and it's payable every time you would trade on a consent street. The new policy looks at a different way of charging, so potentially having a seasonal license or an event license for something like Holt Market, for example, or events like, you know, Cromer Carnival or things like that. So there is an event type license, a seasonal, and in a separate category for charity stalls as well. So the next step of that process is to go out for consultation on that draft policy. We'll obviously be working with town and parish councils who would be impacted on that, and other stakeholders that have an interest in street trading. So that, I think that covers all of the different types of licensing undertaken. It's a wide and varied part of the work that we do, and it's delivered by a relatively small team. So all of the work undertaken requires partnership, working with the police, and that continues to be a strong and successful partnership, and one that we are keen to maintain. So Nikki and I are happy to take any questions you might have in terms of specifics around the report. Thank you.
I'd just like to put on record the committee's thanks for all the work that you've done in this area of change. So thank you very much indeed for that. Nigel.
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. You skipped over the tattoos and the skin piercing section. I'm just reading that. It's down as a high risk activity, and I just would like to know what input or what government contact you might be having in regard to that.
Through our professional body of the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, they are lobbying government in terms of the change of regime around skin piercing, particularly dermal fillers and Botox. It's a highly unregulated area, so that's something that our professional body is lobbying on behalf of us as a profession at the moment.
Anybody else? Yes, go on, Peter.
Morning. I've just got a query ready, and wonder if we could amend the taxi licensing form. I think it's question 8, offences and accidents. There's only one line in there that has to be filled in without an extra sheet that has to be asked for. On occasion, we as panelists have sat there and not been able to be sure whether the applicant has left off some of his offences accidentally or not, and we've been sort of forced into giving him the benefit of the doubt, really. And it would be a lot more sensible if there was no doubt, if those areas had to be filled in and we could see that he had avoided or she had avoided filling them in. And that would leave no doubt, because I think it's been a little bit tricky for us on occasions.
Nikki, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Yes. So as I've been present in those committees, there's been question as to if they do put an offence or an incident or endorsement on there, whether that is the only endorsement they've got. And certainly from last week's meeting, I went back to the team to say we need to look at not just that section, but the whole form. So there is the capability for a lot more information to be provided. And certainly when applicants make applications to us, we do have interviews with those. The team have an interview with them to go through the process, to go through the handbook. And certainly that is something that is raised within that interview to make sure that all information is provided. So, but I will certainly be looking myself at going through that form and updating it so there's enough space there.
Yeah, can I just pick up on that picture as well?
Of course, yes, please.
Nikki, there was that the case I sat on where the gentleman we questioned his data barring check, and in fact it turned out that he'd been cleared 3 times because he was about to go into have foster children with him. Have we covered the capacity to ensure that we get all data barring checks revealed when we do when the form is created?
So with the DBS certificate, which is obviously a separate form to the application form, which they should also provide that information. So with the DBS certificate, it's an enhanced certificate, and it is exempt. All the new taxi drivers that are exempt from the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. So, however, there were new filtering rules that were implemented in 2020, end of 2020, I think, which does mean that there are certain rules or certain convictions that will be filtered out. So even an enhanced one, that there will be some offences that are filtered out. So
yeah, I was also thinking about the fact that that particular applicant had been through the obviously child protection because he was about to be taking on foster children, and that hadn't really come through in the application. And the point was, if he'd gone through that process, it would have made a significant sort of difference to the panel who, I think, Peter, you were on that panel with me, to the panel that were actually reviewing his application. So really, it's just trying to draw that information out, and it's no criticism of the officers creating the report in the first case. It's just the fact that there was this evidence and the whole process behind what he was doing, which was nothing to do with the license, but indirectly it had an impact on our view of his application.
Sorry, and I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's any DBS revelations on the DBS certificate, then I thought it was sort of council's policy that those applicants had to be referred to the subcommittee for them to make the overriding decision. And certainly that is something that, when we're having those interviews with those applicants, that we can try and glean out more information of their past or their current circumstance with regards to that particular situation. But I think we would still, as a licensing authority, even though he's had gone through that process with Children's Services, because there's DBS revelations, we wouldn't be able to, at an officer level, make that determination.
No, I wasn't expecting you could. It was just sort of the whole, viewing a rather more completed package or report to the subcommittee rather than anything else. Okay, but that's fine. Thank you.
I accept that you look at scores of licensing applicants and that we only get to see the ones that are causing some sort of issue. And I think Peter's point raising that should be enough space for applicants to fully fill out the certainly the criminal aspect, because they might just cherry pick the ones that think, oh, we'll just take the ones that's not serious and leave the most serious ones out. So we have to trust them to fill that out as well. So if they've got enough room to fill it in,
Yeah, we can take that feedback on board in terms of the form and making sure there is enough space to include all
please
all the relevant and information there, certainly.
come back, Pete, please.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy with that. But we have got another question on street trading. I believe the street trading hasn't been looked at for a long, long while, and the prohibited streets list hasn't been updated. I also understand that trading in the curtilage of the properties, say in Stave Street in Wells, won't be or will be exempt from a street trading license, so that if it's on a prohibited street, they can still trade from their shop fronts. And that's a very important point. I think in whenever it was 1984, Wells looked at it and thought, no, we don't want to touch this. But as soon as there's an incident where there is somebody that's trading in the streets and taking away from somebody who's paying for a premises, that has galvanized their thoughts. So as long as that is as it is, I'll be able to help them with that.
Yeah, certainly as part of that consultation process, I perhaps was remiss of me not to say that we'll also be looking at the consent streets that are listed and the prohibited streets within the district as well, because I think at the moment there is one in Hovton, isn't there, and one in Walcott, but that's it for the district in terms of prohibited streets. So we will be reviewing that list again and looking at that provision within it. So yeah, certainly. And Wells is on the radar because I've had some contact about Wells already. So thank you for that one.
Emma first. Yes, please, Emma.
I'm just going to, with regards to the caravan licensing, this is something that I'm completely impassioned about because I had a horrible incident myself. I just wonder if we're doing anything to lobby the government to create more robust license or a robust, trying to think of the word for it, with regards to how the people living on the caravan sites are being looked after. Because I'm aware of a lot of upset with regards to it being a license. It's only supposed to be so many months of the year. Some places that are living on So I just wondered how if we're addressing that at any point. I love the work that you've done already. That's fantastic because that's some of the things that I experienced. I just wondered how much further we can go with that.
Yeah, the licensing regime around caravans is an interesting system, I would say. And, you know, it's in some ways doesn't go far enough in terms of protecting those individuals that live on those sites and the different site type of license. There isn't a county group for caravan site licensing, but I think there could be some work that could be done with some neighbouring authorities in that field that then potentially not just to share good practice, but then would allow us to have a wider voice on that topic. So yeah, but I am aware it's a very sketchy licensing regime. So we're doing what we can within the regime that's currently there, but you're right, some bits are falling through the gaps.
Gerard, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
It's just a quick one. At Hoverton, just recently, we've had a problem with as the season heats up, signage comes out all over the place and spills out onto the roads. I know it's probably a county issue, but do you have any sort of responsibility yourself for signage? Because we're getting a lot of billboards, especially across the bridges and stuff like that. And just recently, we've had a load of them sort of taken off, but they're going to creep back in. I just wondered if you have any sort of influence on county, or do you have any sort of monitoring to do with anything to do with that?
It works differently in different local authorities who's responsible for signage, doesn't it? And previous authorities that I've worked at, it's fallen within the planning enforcement team, and that's something we haven't dealt with in our department, whether planning enforcement are picking up that element of advertising. But I can certainly speak to Kevin Peacock, the planning enforcement manager, about it. But it's potentially an obstruction to the highway that could be reported to the county council.
Nigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just looking at scrap metal dealers. An incident has come through development recently of an old scrap site that has caused considerable angst because the developer doesn't or can't or doesn't want to pay to clean the site up because the site has not been a scrap dealer's site for many years. It's impacting on the problem. Is there anything that we can do to ensure or assist in land pollution or to try and clear it up? Because if you have got a scrap metal dealer on site, we all know that rain and heat causes land pollution, and got to ask the question, when these sites become vacant, as they do, it can cause a potential on-lasting problem. Is there anything that we can do to have a look at this to ensure that their pollution can be improved? I don't think we're ever going to stop it, but it's something I think that here, not necessarily, but it does need to be looked at.
This is where the licensing regime sits well with the environmental protection section, doesn't it? And hence why it forms the environmental health department as a whole, because whilst potentially that's not controlled by the licensing regime anymore, if they no longer have a current scrap metal dealer's license, it could be something that would be picked up by the environmental protection team in terms of pollution and things like that, in terms of land condition, etc. So I would say perhaps not an issue for the public protection team and licensing, but something that our environmental protection team could certainly look into.
Okay, that helps. It's just the fact that I do see, because of the recent example that's come through development, which was widely reported, land pollution is a problem, and we're not going to get out of it. And I wasn't asking from the licensing from your point of view as such, but I just think there's something we've got to take a look at, maybe make a note of it, because you've got 6 collectors, 6 sites here, 9 collectors. And I'm remembering licensing, we had an incident where somebody was taking too much scrap on the back of a van and it blew off in the wind and went across the road, and we had to take the bloke's license away. So, scrap metal dealing, it is a necessary part of life, but it's a flipping nuisance at times. So I was just asked, is there anything we could do, or could somebody look at it to see what could be done? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly if you want to supply me with those details, Councillor Pearce, so I can pick them up. if they've got a specific site in mind.
I wasn't being specific on any site because of, I was just looking at the fact that we've got 6 sites, and it was because of what's come through development recently. I thought, yeah, you know, a person can leave a site, but it can sit there contaminated for X number of years, as it has done here. And it's now caused a problem 10 years down the line, but the scrap metal dealer is long gone, packed up, junked and gone, and someone's left with the cleanup bill.
Fine, thank you, Nigel. Yes, Nigel.
Can I just raise a quick question? The definition of a fit and proper person in the context of licensing, which we have to deal with, if during the process of a discussion or negotiation, things are revealed that they're not a fit and proper person, would that bar them from, or would that cease any negotiations for license, if such were the case?
So so if they went to committee and it was deemed that they were not a fit and proper person because of the evidence that was provided in front of the committee at that time, so
Yes, if in the initial stages it would seem that they were a fit and proper person, but as we went down the road with discussions and negotiations, elements were revealed that one would take the conclusion that they weren't fit and proper people, then in that context would any negotiation cease?
So what would happen is if they were a licensed driver with us already and information came towards us that they then were not a fit and proper person, then we've obviously got the availability to bring them in front of committee to relook at, you know, should that person still have a taxi badge and be operating.
Yeah, sorry, no, it wasn't just specifically taxi. It was just a general principle.
Are you referring to caravan sites and
Yes.
proper people?
Yeah.
I think the similar rules apply in terms of that fit and proper
They would
person
apply.
assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
as part of the fit and proper person register for the residential sites, then there are DBS certificates that do need to be provided with those applicants,
Yeah.
with those applications.
But if subsequent to a DBS something came up, then presumably that would
Again, yeah, if we received information that something has happened and they're no longer a fit and proper person, then we can, as a local authority, we can vary their license and we can appoint somebody else to be that fit and proper person, or we can request for a new one.
Fine.
That is certainly. can be
okay.
dealt
That's
with.
great. Thank you very much.
Right, any additional questions? Thank you very much indeed. Suppose the next thing we go on, exclusion of press and public. None. And to consider any exempt matters arising from the public business of the agenda. Nothing there at all. Okay, we'll close the meeting, this meeting